Coming up next, it's Nostalgia Overload. We're taking a time machine back to the 70s to rediscover 10 hits that were brilliantly crafted for their era. So, of course, they never quite faded away, but they're stuck in that wonderful decade, the 70s. We're going to spotlight a duet that rewired the wholesome image of a beloved star who dared to take bold risks on screen and on vinyl. You'll see what I mean next. There's also the track from one of the greatest rock bands ever, whose devoted fans flipped out completely. They accused them of selling out when they jumped on the disco bandwagon just to get a #1 hit. Plus, we'll revisit a record-setting song that also tops my list as the worst song I've ever heard, written by the biggest creep in the music business who refused to pay out millions in royalties and even cooked up a scheme that drew aspiring actresses and singers into danger. And we'll close with a colossal smash from a Halley's Comet of the era who sadly burned out as one of the most tragic stars in music history. His famous brothers gave him a song that was bigger than any of their hits, even though they were one of the most successful groups ever. But decades later, it's all but forgotten. We're going to do it. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you ever had a pet rock or several pet rocks, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure that you're subscribed because a lot of people have been unsubscribed for some reason. So make sure you are. Make sure to like, comment, and share this so we can keep the channel going. Been through some rough times, but with your help, we're going to keep it going. All right, for today's episode, I'm going to do another volume of our show, Dated, where we count down 10 songs that take you right back to the year they came from. They sound like that year, that era, due to the production and theme. Now, I want to quickly explain this show because I think I've confused some people with our previous volumes. Now, this show, I'm not saying these songs aren't great and they're not beloved decades later. Not at all. I'm just simply saying they define the time they came from. I'll kind of explain it as we move along. We're going to revisit 1978. All right, coming in at number 10, it's the timeless and of its time hit by the biggest pop band from Sweden, ABBA, with Take a Chance on Me. Now, ABBA's Bjorn Ulvaeus, he was an avid runner. He ran to keep in shape and to blow off steam. When he went on his runs, though, he would chant a rhythmic tick-a-tick-a-chat, and he did that to keep a consistent pace. You know, this was before Apple Watches. That percussive vocalization gradually morphed into the line Take a Chance. Project's demo and working title was once Billy Boy, actually. To highlight the Take a Chance beat, though, the band opened the track with the rhythm, with Benny and Bjorn delivering a breathy lower register vocal, with Agneta and Frida powering the chorus, producing a distinctive driving texture. On the first in line, honey, I'm still free. The recording session for Take a Chance on Me, that marked one of ABBA's early hits in which manager Stig Anderson formed no part of the lyric writing process. He left Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus as the sole songwriting duo. Drummer Roger Palm called the track ABBA at their most energetic and forceful. Yet Bjorn shared that Benny didn't like the middle section line, "We could go dancing and we could go walking" at first. So after a few rounds, he finally decided to keep it. Take a Chance on Me definitely sounds like a product of its era. That can't be argued, signaling ABBA's move toward the last wave of lightweight pop before the 80s reshaped the soundscape. The track's dense, layered production echoing late 70s disco can feel busy and lively next to today's cleaner, more compressed or minimal arrangements. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. When I dream I'm alone with you, it's me. But that texture is exactly what makes it great. What makes it sound like, the late 70s to contemporary listeners. We all celebrate its pure pop perfection. It's a nostalgic snapshot of its time for sure. American chart history is part of the story too. While ABBA songs didn't climb as high in the US charts as they did in Europe, this song became an exception, turning into ABBA's second highest single under Dancing Queen, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1978. Our number 9 pick today absolutely screams 1978. It's Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta with a smash duet, You're the One That I Want. In the Grease live musical show, which of course preceded the iconic movie, You're the One That I Want wasn't there at all. John Farrar, Olivia Newton-John's longtime collaborator, wrote it for the movie to give the finale a fresh, upbeat pop feel for 1978. It actually replaced a song called All Choked Up, which was kind of like Elvis's All Shook Up, kind of a ripoff. The film's director fought the inclusion of the song because he didn't feel like it fit the rest of the soundtrack at all. He obviously lost that battle of wills. The scene in Grease that features The One That I Want, where Olivia's character, Sandy, shows up at the amusement park, wearing the skin-tight black spandex and red high heels. That definitely marked a pivotal shift in style for Olivia Newton-John, moving her from country pop to a more contemporary sound. It was another calculated move that John Farrar took to shake Olivia's squeaky clean image in one fell swoop. Olivia was very comfortable delivering her part of the duet on You're the One That I Want. John Travolta, he was a nervous wreck. John would be the first to tell you that he wasn't a great singer, so after numerous high-pressure takes, John belted out his vocal parts with a reckless abandonment, and it actually won everyone over. Like Grease the movie, You're the One That I Want was a runaway smash. It went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Largely because Grease was such a landmark in pop culture for that year. I mean, when you hear that song, your mind's eye goes right to that scene in that irresistibly fun movie back in 1978. All right, coming in #8, it's a song where a rock band, one of the most famous rock bands ever, embraced the most popular genre of the moment, disco. And hey, many rock stars and rock bands did it, from Elton John to Queen to Pink Floyd. But Miss You by the Rolling Stones may have swung a little too close to the disco side on this one. I've been hanging out so long, I've been sleeping all alone. Miss You by the Stones, it's a catchy jam, no question about it. The track actually grew out of a jam between Mick Jagger and Billy Preston during rehearsals for the 1977 El Macambo Club gigs. The song really steeps itself in 70s New York disco for sure, though. That classic 4-on-the-floor groove that shows the band rolling with the trendy sound of the era. Now, the punchy, infectious bass line, that was Bill Wyman's doing. According to engineer Chris Kimsey, Wyman checked out several New York clubs to nail that vibe, and it's that vibe that really made the song, according to all of them. Now, at first, Mick and Ron Wood played it down as just a subconscious disco move. They didn't mean for it to be that way. But, Keith Richards, he later admitted it was a damn good disco record. And it was definitely calculated to be a disco song, according to him. Now, the Stones brought in a few session players for Miss You. Sugar Blue played harmonica with Mel Collins on sax, and Ian McLaughlin on electric piano. Collins had previously played with King Crimson, and McLaughlin had been in Faces with Stones guitarist Ron Wood. Sugar Blue, who's from Harlem, was actually playing in the Paris Metro, the subway system for the City of Light, when a Stones record company rep saw him performing underground and invited him to join the Miss You sessions. He just came off the street, and they had him play. It was awesome. Now, since the lyrics for Miss You were written just after Mick's divorce with Bianca, a lot of fans thought the song was about that. It was about Bianca. Mick said it wasn't. Miss You was a huge sensation for the Stones, though. It went all the way to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, despite heavy backlash from their diehard followers who began calling them the Disco Stones, and of course accusing them of selling out. It would be the Stones' last trip to the top of the pop charts. A lot of people don't remember that. And even with the backlash the Stones had, again, they swore that it was not disco, it was R&B. But Mick Jagger was said to have been seeing YMCA when he was working on it. So, and then, of course, what Keith Richards said. Now, John Lennon felt the Stones ripped off his song for Yoko called Bless You. What do you think? Bless you. Really quickly, make sure to get your Vintage Years collection t-shirts. You can get them below or right up here. The best years in music with 4 of the best stars of that time. You're going to love these shirts. All right, coming in at #7 on our dated countdown, I got Andrew Gold with a song that would eventually become an institution in the 80s for a classic sitcom. It's Thank You for Being a Friend, Andrew Gold.
Thank you for being a friend.
Andrew Gold originally wrote Thank You for Being a Friend back in 1978 as what he called a little throwaway tune Took him about an hour to finish, and he said he was going through kind of a Brian Wilson phase in his career. He noted that the song felt sort of dedicated to his musical partner Brock Walsh, along with his manager Norman Epstein. Andrew swears it only took an hour to write Thank You for Being a Friend, but recording it, that was a different story altogether. He actually did 40 takes and ended up using take number 40 as the keeper.
Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant.
An unusual touch in the track was sleigh bells in the mix to add a light festive texture to the track. Andrew's production crew tried to think of an instrument that would create, such a mood. And Andrew's conclusion was that the most joyous tunes were Christmas songs singing about sleigh bells and mistletoe, so that's why that was added. He was also in that Pet Sounds vibe, right? Thinking Brian Wilson.
I'm not ashamed to say.
Andrew had already established himself as a respected studio musician in the 70s by this time, before his solo breakthrough came with Lonely Boy that went to number 7. For Thank You for Being a Friend, he brought in celebrated drummer Jeff Porcaro from Toto, renowned session guitarist Waddy Wachtel, to handle the guitar parts, while Andrew took care of the keyboards and the lead vocals.
Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you.
7 years after the song was a number 25 hit for Andrew on the Billboard Hot 178, it had a huge renaissance. It became the theme from the NBC sitcom The Golden Girls, which of course ran from 85 to 92. Now, a jingle singer named Cynthia Feast sang the TV theme version.
Thank you for being a friend.
And Andrew made more money for its use as a theme song than he did in its original format, and more than his entire catalog combined, for that matter. His version is a late 70s relic due to its production, but the lyrics are timeless, and the song has become a standard thanks to the TV show. Thank You for Being a Friend. It projects a blend of LA soft rock with English pastoral pop influences, which was popular in the early to mid 70s. It makes it sound firmly rooted in that time. It's a dated ditty written on a whim by a 26-year-old Andrew Gold, but it had a second life on the tube, creating a feel-good nostalgic sentiment to open The Golden Girls.
Thank you for being a friend.
Andrew Gold is another musician that died way too young. He's only 59 when he succumbed to a massive heart attack in 2011. Andrew had another link to a TV soundtrack when he sang the lead vocal for Final Frontier, the theme song for the sitcom Mad About You, debuting in 1992. A lot of people don't realize that.
To the final frontier. Mad about you, baby.
I'm so excited to mention today's sponsor. There's nothing like seeing your favorite band or artist live. I mean, the lights go down, the crowd starts buzzing, and when that first chord hits, it's magic. That's why we go. But getting tickets, that can feel like trying to score front row at Led Zeppelin in 75. I mean, there's endless screens, surprise fees, prices jumping at checkout. It's maddening. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. Now, it's ridiculously easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time at the best price. Here's the kicker, though. Fees are included up front. What you see is what you pay. No surprises. I was checking out tickets for an upcoming show, and within minutes, I had great seats locked in. And with the Seat Views feature, you can see the panoramic view from your seat before you buy. And I love the zone deals. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Plus, there's lowest price guarantee. That means if you find a better deal, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ROCK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ROCK for $20 off. Let's go see some live music. All right, coming in at number 6 is a song that has finished at the top of many worst songs ever lists and polls out there. It's one of the biggest songs of its time and firmly entrenched in its time. You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone. Now, if you like this song, I get it. I don't want to take anything away from that. But for me, I absolutely loathe it. Now, I probably despise it more than any song I've ever heard next to Disco Duck, probably because my sister had the 45 and played it at least 15,000 times when I was a kid.
So many nights I'd sit.
You Light Up My Life is a sappy love song that's surrounded by a ton of controversy, though. It came from the 1977 film with the same name, and the original recording of the movie featured a lead vocal by a singer named Casey Sissick. The film's director, Joseph Brooks, reportedly had a falling out with Sissek and refused to pay her, which led her to sue and ultimately get official credit for her vocals. Brooks was said to have tried to dodge paying her and even made improper advances towards her. This is why Sissek had to sue for both credit and royalties. To get a more marketable sound, though, to push You Light Up My Life for radio airplay and try to push it up the charts, Joseph Brooks then hired Debbie Boone, of course Pat Boone's daughter, and she recorded the single. Boone later said she was told to mimic every inflection from Sissek's version. Now, Joseph Brooks won an Oscar for You Light Up My Life, but he was also the biggest creep in the music business. Seriously. His career was marred by serious criminal charges later on. In 2009, he was charged with assault by more than a dozen women who had answered fake ads for acting roles, with his assistant helping to facilitate these crimes. They worked together to do this. Now, he took his own life in 2011, which starkly contrasted with the wholesome image of You Light Up My Life. It's especially striking because Debbie Boone, a devout Christian, wouldn't have agreed to work with Joseph Brooks or sing his song if she had known about his nefarious behavior and what a creep he was. Brooks made a good business decision, though, in recruiting Debbie Boone to re-record You Light Up My Life, because it was a gigantic hit. It set a record for the most weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 at that time, a whopping 10 weeks, even beating Elvis. As for Casey Sissek, she won the lawsuit, banking a fortune in royalties and becoming a very successful jingle singer after. She was the voice of high-profile ad campaigns like Ford's Have You Driven a Ford Lately? That jingle. She also did ads for Coke and McDonald's. Casey actually died of breast cancer in 1998, 6 days before her 45th birthday. You Light Up My Life, that was the only hit single for Debbie Boone. She was definitely a one-hit wonder. And as large as the song was in 1978, really hasn't aged well. It represents the decline of MOR, middle-of-the-road pop hits that were prevalent in the 70s. By the dawn of the 80s, it had diminished. Coming in halfway through the countdown at number 5, it's our dated countdown. It's a late 70s classic, Kiss You All Over by Exile.
I wanna kiss you all over.
So prolific songwriter and producer Mike Chapman moved from London to Los Angeles in 1975, chasing a girl he was fascinated with and quickly found it tough to reestablish himself. So at this time, he wandered through a stack of demo tapes, and at that time, he came across a band called the Exiles that he thought they were pretty cool. The Exiles, who were originally called the Richmond Exiles, they've been around for about a decade, but their only blip on the charts was with a Tommy James cover called Church Street Soul Revival in 1970. Mike Chapman signed into a management production deal, shortened their name to Exile, and wrote and produced a song for them called Try It On.
When you get down to trying it on, you get your fingers back.
It was not a hit, though. It barely reached number 97 in the US in 77. He struggled to build momentum for the band until a flash of inspiration with Kiss You All Over, a song he co-wrote with his writing partner, Nicky Chin. Nicky joined Chapman in LA to work on the song. Now, Chapman explained that Kiss You All Over was meant to follow Barry White's slow burn sensual vibe rather than a straight rock sound. Even though Exile, the Kentucky rock band who cut the track, were pure rock, he was aiming to echo Barry White's It's Ecstasy When You Lay Down Next to Me.
Ecstasy. When you lay down.
Now, in an interview, Mike said he and Chin followed a musical formula that clicked in America during the 70s. He described it this way, and it's kind of cool. It's a very unusual song, and it really captures what American music was about in 1978. It sits in the middle of the road, soft rock with a hint of disco, though not pure disco, and it has a sensuous lyric line that Americans seemed to love at that time. That kind of explains my whole idea for Dated right there. Kiss You All Over is another example of a song that rode the MOR middle-of-the-road wave. When that trend became passé, so did the song. Kiss You All Over was the #1 hit in the US for 4 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. Once again, Chapman and Chin knew how to craft a hit. A year after the massive success of Kiss You All Over, the lead singer featured on the track, though Jimmy Stokely, was forced out of the band in 1979 due to internal conflicts with his bandmates. and declining health as well. Jimmy actually passed away a few years later at age 41.
I wanna kiss you all over.
All right, coming in at number 4 in our 1978 dated countdown, it's The Tramps with a song trapped in the late 70s, Disco Inferno. And no matter how much you might detest disco or love it, this is one of the most singable songs of the era. The title and lyrics for Disco Inferno, they were inspired by a moment from the 1974 blockbuster disaster film The Towering Inferno. This is where a disco located in a top floor ballroom is on the verge of being devoured by a massive fire.
The Towering Inferno.
It's out of control. And it's coming your way.
Now, Disco Inferno was composed by Leroy Green and Ron Have Mercy Kersey. The original master recording in 1976 was the result of one of those happy accidents. Tom Moulton, the studio mixer, pointed to a big technical hiccup that shaped the track's big sound. So during the mixdown, the Dolby noise reduction was set incorrectly. When engineer Jay Mark kind of messed with it, the new mix had an unusually wide dynamic range. So the song almost seemed to explode out of the amplifiers. That technical malfunction made it a classic. Now the famous line, "Burn Baby Burn," that was a pun about dancing hard on the dance floor. But it also carried hints of the 1960s Watts riot in LA, reflecting the turbulent social mood of the 70s. At first, Disco Inferno didn't smoke up the charts. When it came out in 1976, it only reached number 53 in the Billboard Hot 100. Its trajectory shifted dramatically, though, after it was included on the 1977 Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, the second biggest selling soundtrack album of all time next to The Bodyguard. The track was re-released as a single, eventually peaking at number 11 in 1978. Now, you do hear Disco Inferno a lot on oldie stations, and it's been placed in a variety of films, from Donnie Brasco to Ghostbusters to Dogtown and Z-Boys to Kingpin, but it's placed to evoke a period in pop culture that's unmistakable, the peak of the disco era in 1978. Even though the song is dated, it's still an instant party, and Jimmy Ellis's lead vocal is an incredible performance. Coming in at number 3 on our 1978 dated countdown, I've got Nick Gilder with the 70s smash, Hot Child in the City.
Hot child in the city.
Hot Child is a massive hit that was also masked in controversy. Hot Child in the City is known for its surprisingly dark undertones. Now, on the surface, that catchy hook helped it soar to number 1 in the US and Canada, but a closer listen reveals it's really commenting on teenage, I can't say the word, it's P-O-R, stitution, and runaways in Los Angeles. Can't say the P word on here, so it rhymes with ostitution, right?
Danger in the shape of something wild.
The sleek production paired with unsettling lyrics has become a defining contrast in its legacy. Nick Gilder has said he wrote the song from the perspective of a lecher, inspired by his observations of teens drawn into the trade of sex along Hollywood Boulevard. That angle can be both interesting and also repulsive. Some listeners found the track creepy once they learned what it's really about.
No one knows who she is or what her name is.
Not everyone buys Gilder's interpretation of the song, though. Some critics question whether Gilder intended the lyrics as a cautionary social tale. I mean, phrases like, "Come on down to my place, baby, we'll talk about love," can be read as flirtatious, even predatory, which makes it hard to imagine the song is a serious critique.
Come on down to my place, baby.
To them, it feels like a story he started telling as his catchy pop tune unexpectedly climbed to the top, and then he kind of made up the story later. When Hot Child in the City began its journey to number 1, though, many listeners thought it was sung by a female. This was due to Nick Gilder's high-pitched vocal style.
She comes downtown, she walks like she just don't care.
Some went years before they discovered the real gender of the singer. Even DJs were totally confused. Gilder's vocal is one of the reasons why the song is kind of dated, though. Sounds like a throwback to 70s glam that by 1978 was becoming out of favor. Hot Child in the City was the lone hit for Nick Gilder, though, another one-hit wonder. But he went on to be a successful songwriter, penning songs for other artists like the top 10 hit The Warrior by Patti Smythe and Scandal. All right, coming in at number 2, the bridesmaid position on our dated countdown. It's one of my favorite songs by one of the best rock bands of the 70s and 80s, Definitely should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Talking about Fooling Yourself by Styx.
Fooling yourself, you don't believe it.
I love this song. Now, Tommy Shaw, he disclosed that he wrote Fooling Yourself after watching the attitude of the other singer in the band, Dennis DeYoung, and thinking of him as an angry young man. He kept spotting the downside of everything. He was kind of a cynical guy. You know, even as the band was getting bigger and more successful, Dennis was cynical, he was wary of their wins, and he felt pulled down by setbacks, which just fed that negativity. In fact, here's what Tommy told me about the song in an interview I did.
It gave us the license to do a little more progressive stuff. It showed off what Styx had in their bag of good music tricks. Dennis wrote the intro. We all kind of threw in parts, but Dennis really guided the song from beginning to end. So you can break it apart and say who wrote this section, who wrote that section, but he really was the guy at the front of it saying, okay, this is how it's going to go. This is how the arrangement.
I remember reading early interviews where you said that was a bit of a message to Dennis, who hated touring, and you were kind of telling him, enjoy yourself. And later on, I remember reading where you said, sometimes I'm talking about myself, that sometimes I can be cynical, and to remind myself.
And it's true. He was a little older than me, and I think quite a bit more serious than me. I just like to have fun, and so it was hard for me to get too serious.
Tommy's idea with the lyrics was to nudge Dennis to see their success in a more positive light and to help him bounce back. I mean, there's the passage, come on, let's see what you've got, just take your best shot.
Let's see what you got. Just take your best shot and go.
Funny enough, though, years later, Tommy admitted Fooling Yourself ended up having a more personal meaning to him, too. It wasn't just about Dennis's neghead personality. The words about cynicism and self-doubt began to feel like they described his own struggles as well. And in sort of an ironic twist, Dennis DeYoung later revealed he was in fact dealing with depression while they were making the album Grand Illusion. He would say that he felt down about the band's earlier records, Equinox and Crystal Ball, not selling very well, and how he perceived them as fading away after their big success with their top 10 hit Lady. Now, after Come Sail Away, Fooling Yourself was the second single from Styx's sprawling triple platinum concept album, The Grand Illusion. Now, 5 minutes and 27 seconds, and the vocal's not starting until about a minute and a half into the song, it isn't your typical radio-friendly pop tune. But Styx wouldn't release a shortened version, arguing that trimming the long intro would be like cutting the wedding scene from the movie The Godfather. I mean, the long synthesizer intro and during the middle of the second half of the track played by Dennis DeYoung is really what makes Fooling Yourself sound dated now. But it's hard to imagine the song without that theatrical synthesizer part. It's one of the reasons I love the song, even though that's exactly what makes it sound like the late 1970s. But it's a great flashback to progressive pop rock from 1978. All right, it's time to reveal our number one pick for this edition of Dated. Last but definitely not least, on this feature, a Dated song from 1978 is the year's biggest single, Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb. Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb sits squarely in the disco pop crossover that really defined 1978, the peak of the disco era. While you can boogie down to it, it's wrapped in the production conventions of that year. Rhythms, bass lines, and horn accents that signal a prevalent cultural sound that makes it feel dated to listeners now. The song represented that period so well, though. It was actually the biggest single in 1978. It was a monster hit, holding the number one position on the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 straight weeks. In fact, it held Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty out of number one, so that's one of the sins of the song. In the late summer of 1978, young Andy Gibb stood at a crossroads that felt almost like a movie. He was 20, he was a father for the first time, newly divorced, and riding a wave toward the forbidden thrill of reinvention. His 2 previous singles, I Just Want to Be Your Everything,
Just wanna be your everything.
and Love is Thicker Than Water, They'd stormed to the top of the singles chart, #1, and his three brothers, the legendary Bee Gees, were riding a dominance that looked unshakable. Only the Beatles had done something like that before. Flowing Rivers, his debut album, had barely cooled when Shadow Dancing slipped into the world, the follow-up that promised a different kind of dazzle. Now, the story behind the birth of Shadow Dancing is almost a mini-drama in itself. The Bee Gees, Barry, Robin, and Morris, they were in LA deep in the making of a movie that would later be remembered as one of the worst ever, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, between takes and cue cards, Andy suggested a writing session with his brothers, a rare window where their siblings' genius could collide in real time. In those minutes, the chorus for Shadow Dancing seemed to come effortlessly, as if the music itself had pressed pause and whispered, "Here it is." And he would later recall that he and his brothers conjured the chorus in about 10 minutes, a quick spark that would ignite one of the biggest songs of the decade. Now, the Bee Gees' involvement on Shadow Dancing, that was definitely the formula that made the song soar up the charts. It is also what trapped the song in 1978. Today, I hear the track as a polished artifact of a particular music industry ecosystem. Star families, blockbuster collaborations, and the kind of high-gloss production that isn't as common in the same way today anyway. Pulling the track into a dated aura simply by context. Think about this. In 2026, you still hear the songs from 1978 that were huge for the Bee Gees. Staying Alive, Night Fever, How Deep Is Your Love. All those went to #1. But for the year, Shadow Dancing was bigger than all those songs. It's the truth. Andy smashed all of his brothers' hits. But you don't hear Shadow Dancing on oldie stations at all. You don't hear it on social media streaming or any other platform. It's as if the song wasn't even a hit. And allegedly, the brothers, they almost recorded it. But in the end, they gave it to Andy. What if the Bee Gees had actually recorded Shadow Dancing? Would it be one of the biggest songs played by the group right now? What do you think? Tell me in the comments. After such a monster hit with Shadow Dancing and the other songs, though, it was difficult for Andy Gibb to stay on top of that pop mountain. He was one of the brightest stars in rock and pop history, no doubt, but he burned out quick. Think about it. He only released 10 songs and 3 albums in his short career. They were all hits. 8 of the top 10 singles were huge hits. He had 3 #1 hits and 5 top 10s. But he couldn't shake his demons, which were definitely intensified by the roller coaster ride of show business. He passed away at only 30 years of age. It's so sad. You know, just like Michael Hutchence of INXS, I've always believed if Andy could have weathered the storm and got his life back on the right path, I think he would have had a very lucrative touring business, especially doing something like a residency in Las Vegas. Sadly, that would not happen. Andy would go down as one of the biggest flashes, one of the biggest Halley's Comets in rock history, one of the most tragic. And I tell you what, you think about that. 8 huge hits, 3 #1s, 5 top 10s, and they happened in like 2.5 years. He was so big. Again, his songs were bigger than his brothers, the Bee Gees. Shadow Dancing, the biggest song of that year, bigger than any Bee Gees hit. But you just don't hear it anymore. It's totally forgotten. This is crazy how things work out. Well, there you have it. The top 10 dated songs in 1978. Let me know your thoughts and your memories below in the comments. Let's have a great discussion about 1978. And let's remember Andy Gibb. Such a talented guy. Our Love, Don't Throw It All Away, a song he sang with his brother, is one of my favorite songs by the Bee Gees. Just such a sad story. Leave us a comment and make sure to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.